In this short video, I want to share one approach that may help to support the measuring and tracking of skills across the senior school phase. What research has shown is that it's complex to assess 21st century skills, and even if this is achieved, there can be errors associated with their measurement. The Brookings Institute advises that assessment of these skills can be achieved if the following principles are adhered to. Firstly, data collection processes should be aligned with purposes and agenda at all levels. The goal here is to ensure that even though there will be different approaches across subject departments and activities, the goal is always to enhance learning. Secondly, schools should establish a clear link between the captured form of data and the intended reported form of data. This means that the format and structure of the reporting framework is clearly specified. Also important to this principle is that individualized learning progressions are the intentions of the reporting. Empirical data is not always feasible when assessing all types of skills progression. When reporting at school level, it may be preferable to describe each skill with words and examples to show what it means to make progress or to improve in an area of learning. The Centre for Universal Education at Brookings identifies the purpose of assessment to be fourfold. Firstly, to locate learners along a learning progression and identify gaps in achievement. Secondly, to adapt instructional practices to individual needs and inform instructional improvement. Thirdly, to track and communicate learner progress. And finally, to inform data-driven decision-making at classroom and school levels. Using these guiding principles, we can view assessment as information to inform teaching and learning practice for individual learners, as opposed to assessment as a means to rank learners against each other. In this regard, assessment can be truly adaptive and enhance learning. Let's take a look at one way assessing skills can be achieved. The approach I'm going to share with you today amplifies learner agency in terms of choice and voice. Agency grows when learners talk about their own learning in a way that's meaningful to them. Using an e-portfolio, learners are encouraged to document and take responsibility for tracking their development. They can reflect on next steps and take greater ownership of their own learning pathway. So here we have an example of a mock e-portfolio that aims to track skills progression. This example is for a fictional learner aged around 13. You can see here their name, and a bit further down we can see there's a personalised introduction to this web-based e-portfolio from the learner, and then it moves to the skills that will be tracked. So let's just take a look at those now. Now, of course, any skills can be added here that are relevant to your setting. If we come back to the thinking skills section, you'll see there's a hyperlink here that we can click, and these then reveal the learning progression pathway for this particular skill and how a student can develop over time. This could be adapted for any scenario, but in this example, this learning pathway is for thinking skills, and it goes from level 1, which would relate to the first and second year of senior school, to level 2, correlating to the third and fourth year of senior school, with level 3 for progression at the fifth year, and level 4 for the final year of senior school. You can see that the progression of this skill is not specific to any academic subject. This, of course, is entirely possible and perhaps desirable, as critical thinking skills in maths will look quite different to those in history. In this example, the skills are generic, and it's up to the learner to identify where they have experienced these skills across their subjects. These benchmarks can also be extracted from this document and added to a spreadsheet so that teachers and leaders can track progression for individual learners as they progress through the senior school phase. So if we move back to the e-portfolio, we can then see that this fictional student has reflected on her experiences across her subjects. She's identified approaches to her learning that have used these skills. As the skills progression criteria have been shared with her, she can identify where she's met some or all of these benchmarks. And you can see in this example here, there could be a video of the student talking about some aspect of the skills that they have enjoyed, developed, or practiced. You can see this also for the other skills that are being assessed. So here we have social skills, and the criteria or benchmark that's been isolated by the student is collaborating with others. And here is a fictional example of the student who's used design thinking principles to try to solve a problem related to economic fragility and loneliness. Then we have communication skills and how the student has listened and observed, and this has informed some of her artistic output at school. Then we have self-management, which of course is an important skill to develop at any age, but particularly learning this at a young age can be really valuable, because this student here has talked about how she has developed a time management skill that she's going to take forward in her life and her work. Then we've got research skills and how this student has understood the importance of media and information literacy to identify corroboration between sources, the biases inherent in some sources, and political affiliations of some sources too. And so she's reflected there. And then ultimately she reflects overall on what she's learned, what she's enjoyed, and what she needs to do to develop. So she's there setting her own targets. Now this format would be simple to translate into a subject-specific e-portfolio or an e-portfolio that relates to an activity block or a school trip, for example. The beauty of the e-portfolio in this format is that it's cost-effective and can be added to by the learner. These e-portfolios can be published on the internet and be password protected. They can be collaborative in nature, with more than one learner contributing, or with teacher input. Hyperlinks to these portfolios can be embedded into digital reports so that parents and carers can feel more connected and view examples of work and reflections. It provides a brilliant context for learning. This is just one variation of an e-portfolio. The learner would be able to choose any colours, fonts, add videos, PDFs, audio, images, etc. that they feel would show their learning pathway. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you've got any comments or queries, please leave them below. Thanks for watching.